Hello world, welcome to the 93rd Climate Change Emergency Protest, the Gettysburg Addresses, here in Gettysburg, PA, USA. It is September 18th, 2020. As I said, this is the 93rd Climate Change Emergency Protest. Number 94 will be next week on September 25th. Presently the CO2 is 411.6. Last year it was 408.6, so it's 3 points higher than last year. These are in parts per million. The significance of that, as I said many times, is that a static environment can only be enjoyed if it's below 280 to 200 parts per million. Mankind has mostly existed then, and so what that means is you can have a static environment, meaning you have a stable growing atmosphere. So you can count on planting seasons, and this is where the Farmer's Almanac, those type of things are easy to predict. You know, spring it's going to be warmer, and summer it's going to be hot, and you know, the usual seasons that you used to expect. But now things are out of whack. So again, CO2 is 411, and 280 to 200 parts per million is the safe zone. So we're well out of that. If you factored in methane, the initial 2 years, counting methane coming out of the ground, which is 162 times more potent as a greenhouse gas, the equivalency is somewhere around 700 parts per million. So this is well above the 280 limit to be safe as far as growing goes. So this is why we're encountering all these bizarre situations now around the world. Right now we have droughts on the west coast. The entire west basically is in a drought. And that's why, of the United States, this is why we have fires and everything. This is part of a changing climate, which means climate change. It's not a big deal. That's what's happening, and that ends up being a big deal because the climate is definitely changing. For some reason, they choose to make it political, and it's just basic science. It doesn't require a smart person to figure that out, but evidently the president is not smart enough to figure that out, so you leave it up to you as to how smart he is. The peak season for fires in California used to be September, October. It'll be up for grabs whether it continues on that way. It could go much longer now, and the start of fire season is somewhere around January, February. So basically, it's year-round fire season now for the West Coast. They've had no drought. They've had no rain in the last 10 days, so it's not a good situation. As are we here in Gettysburg, PA. We're not going to have significant rain for the next 10 days again, which is very odd. The Alps right now, they're predicting that by 2050, so that's 30 years from now, half the glaciers will be gone. They're having drought in the entire West, as was said. Also, Hawaii is having a drought, as is Maine and New Hampshire. So it's spreading around the whole United States. There was a point yesterday or the day before where the only rain in the whole United States was the hurricane off the Louisiana coast and going up into the southeast. And other than that, the United States didn't have any rain at all. So it's very odd. The Amazon right now also is in a drought, and they have 29,000 fires. It's a huge area, but 29,000 fires is significant. Basically caused by land grabbers. So the drought conditions exist, and then they can set everything on fire easily. So you have land grabbers and wildcat ranchers. So it's not a good situation that way. Australia, New South Wales in the southeast corner of Australia last year had those giant fires with koala bears and everything, and the animals dying all over the place. Well, now it's rained there, but now the Western Australia is now in a severe drought. So I don't know what the vegetation is like there. Maybe someone from Australia can inform me on here, at the bottom of the comments section, as to what Western Australia is like around Perth, and it's called Western Australia, I think, is the state. Africa is having massive fires as well. These are in a drought condition as well. So everywhere is drought basically right now. These are set by farmers for the most part to clear brush, and so far it has not spread into the rainforest, but eventually it will, and then we're going to have real problems. Africa is actually more on fire than anywhere else in the world right now. The Himalayas are saying that by 2100, 2/3 of the glaciers would be gone. So 2 billion people rely on the glacier water in order to survive. So what's going to happen is the glaciers melt away, and you're stuck with river channels that rely on rain. So the channels will fill up when it rains, and then they'll empty out once the rain passes, and people are going to have trouble growing rice and various things, and people need water to survive. That's just a basic fact of life. So you have the Thwaites Glacier down in Antarctica. I predict it's going to start falling apart severely. It has a grounding line of 5,000 feet in the bottom of the ocean, but Antarctica is mostly, West Antarctica is mostly islands, which people don't realize. It's not a big continent that way. So the grounding line is 5,000 feet below sea level. So what's happening is that warmer waters are getting in there. So you get a shelf developing that sticks out over the water, and like a plank, it's eventually going to collapse. So it's not a good situation there. And the significance of the Thwaites Glacier is that it's like a cork in a bottle for all of Antarctica, West Antarctica. And that once that goes, then it enables all the other glaciers to start sliding towards the ocean or just falling into the ocean. So that could significantly raise the sea level. West Antarctica has enough sea level rise in it with the ice to raise sea levels 9 feet. So you have the Arctic also, which is close. That's melting away. I had a ship this summer that went up to the North Pole, the actual North Pole, and it was basically just slush. They're able to push their way through. Back in the past, it used to be 25 feet thick. So it's slush, a foot, maybe less of ice there. Off the coast of Greenland, you used to have these giant, also 25, 30 feet levels of ice, and now that section moved down to the archipelagos of Canada. So what's going to happen though is that for the winter, the ice will sort of reform on the surface, but underneath, near the warmer waters of the Atlantic, make an intrusion into the Arctic. So that's a problem because the ice is going to continue to get eaten from underneath. And the significance of that is that it makes the mid-Atlantic current weaker due to Greenland melting, because now Greenland has no significant cold around it and it's warming up around its environment. And Greenland's dumping all this water into the system, and it's affecting the AMOC, which is the Atlantic mid-diurnal overturning circulation. And it's 15% weaker than what it was. Greenland will soon become the center of the cold, if it's not now, instead of the North Pole. So what that means is that it's a changing growing patterns in the world. The jet stream is totally shredded right now. You don't have much air at all around the world. And the significance of that, again, is that you get into drought, or when you get a weather system, it sticks. So this hurricane that just passed off the United States and into Louisiana went really slow. It went 2 miles an hour till it got to the shoreline. In the past, that never would have happened. And the reason behind that is that the jet stream is shredded, and it doesn't have any push behind it. So hurricanes have a chance to develop in the Caribbean and turn into monsters. So someday someone's going to see a Category 5 pushing Category 6, and a Category 6 doesn't even exist in reality yet. But it will, and it'll blow down the town, and everyone will be surprised. But you're hearing it first. It is going to happen. Growing patterns are going to change, as I said, with the changing jet stream, and it's not a good thing. The problem with the Arctic is that the ice up there, once that goes, it requires a certain amount of heat to get the ice to melt. And that amount of heat that's required to get the ice to melt, if it's pure water and the same amount of heat is applied, the temperature can jump up to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. So the Arctic, technically could get up to 78 degrees Fahrenheit in the ocean, and everyone can just go swimming. However, it's affected by the other waters around it, so it would take a long time to get up to that temperature. But eventually, mankind won't be around to see it, but it could easily get up to that amount of temperature. Right now, the oceans absorb 90 to 93% of our atmospheric heat, so all this heat we're encountering is being absorbed by the oceans as well. So if we didn't have the oceans, we'd be cooked alive. 30% of all the CO2 goes into the ocean as well from the atmosphere. So they're saving us from going in a hot house Earth, but eventually that'll change. The oceans are an amazing organism that keeps all life on Earth going, and without them, we're in trouble. So the CO2 leaches from the atmosphere into the oceans, and it forms carbonic acid. And the significance of carbonic acid is it eats the shells that are the little tiny pteropods that are the basis of all life in the oceans. So once you lose the pteropods, then the upper forms of life also are going to fade. And I saw one study that said that fish from the 1950s and 40s are now 90% smaller than what they used to be. I don't know if that's true or not. It seems kind of weird that a species would shrink that much. But you see photos of fishermen from the 1950s with these giant fish that, as tall as they are, And then the same species, they're happy with fish that are like 2-pounders or 3-pounders that might be a foot long or 2 feet long. So my big thing, and you know, I haven't heard this in 9 years plus, and who knows if anyone even really talks about this and explains the significance of it all. You know, if you have a soda, 2 sodas, and one's really cold, you open up the lid and it goes psh, it doesn't really, it doesn't make much of a sound at all if it's really, really cold. Now, if the soda's really warm, then the soda you hear go psh when you open up the lid. Well, that means that CO2 can't be held and other gases can't be held by the oceans once they warm up. So all this CO2 that the oceans are absorbing eventually will outgas back into the atmosphere. And what that does is cause even more of a feedback loop of more warming and more CO2 around the world, because you have methane clathrates and CO2 stuck in the permafrost areas underneath the ocean of the North Pole area, the northern Russian seas, as well as the permafrost in Siberia. So with more CO2 escaping the atmosphere, the oceans give off more CO2 because things are warming up in the oceans. So you get these massive feedback loops, and there's so many linkages between CO2 and climate change and what's happening in the environment. Nothing is not related to the other thing. It's everything is super connected to each other, as we all are. And we think we're independent and the systems are independent, but no, in reality, they're all connected. So the problem with the ocean slowing down is that, and this happened in the past as well, is that you get algae developing in the oceans, and eventually it'll spread out throughout the whole oceans once the currents stop. And you end up with a hydrogen sulfide situation where whatever life is left on Earth will soon die, because the oxygen level plummets and the hydrogen sulfide in the atmosphere accelerates. So you have a warmer ocean, which is also more acidic. That kills off what reefs we have left. Barrier Reef is in big trouble. The heat buildup on the coast of the USA will occur due to lack of circulation through the AMOC and also the Gulf Stream. Also, another significant thing that no one talks about is the gravity of Greenland as far as the ice. Ice is extremely dense and heavy, and Greenland, believe it or not, actually pulls water towards it. Well, once the ice starts leaving, the gravity lessens, and then the water rushes away from Greenland and will begin to pile up on the coastlines of America and also Europe. It's a significant issue. So what we're going to encounter is unimaginable devastation and catastrophic situation. You easily could end up with an extinction of most life on Earth. Hey, John, how you doing? So it's a bad situation as far as I expect by 2023, 3 years from now, things to become untenable, that we will realize that things are going to run away and they're uncontrollable. So we have a very tiny window to try to affect things and mitigate the change, but we're expecting a real calamity, and we're going to run right into a brick wall, and whether we're able to fix it or not is up for grabs. I don't think probably that humans have the ability or cognitive ability to think years in advance and how bad this is going to get, but you're seeing it exemplified in all the environment situations going on, and no one's doing anything about it. Politicians are giving mouthing and all like that, but they're not really serious. Both candidates running for president of the United States now, Biden and Trump, they don't understand the significance. Trump's an outright denier, and he's going to kill everyone with his policies. Absolutely kill. You will not survive, and things will accelerate even worse. But Biden doesn't get it either. He's proposing goals of 2050. We don't have till 2050. We don't even have till 2023. Things are spinning out of control now. They don't have time to waste. And with the Green Party being pushed off the ballot in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and the United States in general by the Democratic Party, believe it or not, they got the Green Party pushed off the ballot. You don't have anyone pulling hard to the left as far as getting things done. So now you got two groups that are basically right-wing, and the significant change, and they are right-wing, I'm sorry to offend you, but you need to check into the policies of these two leaders in their past, and it's very scary. I really suggest that everyone become involved as far as pushing hard to the left, and left means trying to survive, okay? That's all it is it's basic common sense. But if people think it's too much socialism or too much action being taken to get things done, then enjoy our death and our eventual extinction and watching the kids die. It's tough love being said here, but this is a fact. People in California wouldn't argue right now that their children are dying. They wouldn't argue that they're losing their houses, they're becoming climate refugees. You know, the United States now has climate refugees in scores. So, you know, you can deny and do whatever you want, but the fact of the matter is this is happening. They can say it's forest management, which is total BS, and it's not that at all. And, you know, it's definitely a climate change situation that's happening, and the whole West is eventually going to catch on fire unless they get severe rain. So there's no push to get things done, and I don't, you know, what's going to happen when bad things are happening and no one decides to do anything because everyone's waiting for an election every 4 years. This is called a loss of democracy, and a democracy requires constant attention. And if you don't pay attention to it and be involved and do the things you need to do, such as standing out here and saying things that make people uncomfortable or you know, ostracize you with your friends and family, well, then you're going to lose your democracy. That's what's, you know, going to happen. And the Green Party being pushed off the ballot is an example of that. Democracy is being lost in the United States here and there and everywhere. And, you know, to believe that it's not is another situation that you're ignoring the obvious. You know, the Democrats are thinking, oh, wow, we got the Green Party off, we got extra votes. Well, a lot of the Green Party people aren't going to vote for the Democrats at all anyway. They never would, they never will. So, you know, they're fighting over 20,000 votes because this guy didn't have that many coming in anyway. Meanwhile, they're not pushing the policies to the left, you know, appealing to the progressives and trying to get things done that way and make their platform worthy of that. There were 100 million voters in the United States that did not vote in the last election. That is significant. That's enough to overthrow any election by 2-3 times over. So there are 100 million people that didn't vote. No one's trying to get those votes. No one cares. And the parties are happy with what they have because people have become sheeple and they're not paying attention to democracy and what's happening around them. Do your research as to what your candidates and your party is standing for, and I guarantee you will be shocked. So hopefully people wake up. As I said, this is all related to each other. You got a bad party, you got a bad situation, Democrat or Republican, you're going to have death coming, okay? So this is an extinction event coming. I'm guaranteeing you in 3 years, this summer of 2023, you're going to wish you'd done something, okay? So 2026, I think we're going to have trouble surviving. So we got to get to it, and everyone's standing by TikTok waiting for the November election, and good luck with that, because it's not going to happen and things aren't going to change. So get out here, start doing something. You know, we got these yahoos revving trucks running by me, acting like they're hurting me, and you know, I'm looking at them like they're hurting themselves. You got kids, you're in big trouble. So see you next week. You know, I don't apologize for this admonition. Everyone needs to hear the tough love from somebody, and everyone's being too chicken to get out there and say something. So I'll see you next week. That'll be talk number 94 on September 25th. Bye.